You brood of snakes. Well, that's a nice way to start, isn't it? I keep wondering how John attracted all these people when he kept saying things like that to them, you know. Not sure his PR man was. But they came. And they said, what's this all about? This baptism stuff. And John said, you know, it's about change. It's about becoming all new. It's about God's good gift of new birth. Or maybe God's good gift of second chances. Or God's good gift of making something completely new out of yourself. And what a gift that often can be. Especially when we get in places where we don't much care for what we've become or what we're doing. It's a little tougher maybe sometimes for those of us that have been fortunate to live lives that were fairly blessed and we didn't have any real big issues come up. We never got in any real trouble, and sometimes we don't realize what a good gift that has been our whole life. Sometimes we don't appreciate it very much. And John said, you know, this is for all time. Now, most people, when you meet them, you ask them what they do, right? We probably ought to really ask people what they be, but that really confuses them when you do that. So they look at you like, oh, that's one of them weird people. If you ask them what you do, and say, well, I'm a farmer. Or say, well, how much time you spend doing that? Oh, about 2 hours a week. Now, any farmers work 2 hours a week? How good's the farm? If you work in nuclear industry, so how often you work? About 2 hours a week. I'm a teacher, really? How many hours is that? Really, about 2 hours a week. That doesn't work very good, does it? What John was saying is, look, you're going to be a follower of Jesus, 2 hours a week ain't enough. You can't really call yourself a follower, a Christian, if all you're going to do is 2 hours a week. I know preachers only work 2 hours a week, but that's another story. What John was saying, look, this thing, it's about your whole life. And even despicable people like taxmen would come up. But see, now, I'm not saying that the IRS guys are despicable people. That's out of context. In Jesus' day, the taxmen were fellow Jews who worked for Rome. So they were traders. And not only did they collect taxes, but they wanted a little extra on the side, or you'd get in trouble, or they'd stick the soldiers on you. So they were making extra bribe of money on the side. And what John said is, look, be a tax man, which was a big thing to say in the first place, because they didn't much care for him. But do your job. Just don't demand extra from people. Don't blackmail people. And when the soldiers came, and the soldiers were Roman soldiers, they're not very well liked either, or maybe some of Herod's guard and soldiers, and nobody cared for them either. But John said, look, it's okay, just don't treat people horrible, don't extort them, don't demand extra. Do your job, but don't use it to lord over other people. Be responsible. And if he spoke to each one of us in our jobs, it would be, do it ethically. Do it in accordance with who you are as a follower of Christ. Now, I don't know about you, but sometimes those things conflict. Sometimes we are in work situations where we are asked to do things that don't agree with our ethical principles too much. I was in sales for several years in clothing, and sometimes stores and store chains want to bamboozle customers. And they want you to bamboozle customers. Believe me, if you don't believe that, ask anybody in retail. Not all the time, but sometimes, and And so, you know, do I go along with that, or do I stick to my principles? And that's what John was saying. You got to stick to your principles. Now, sometimes that might mean pain, like a reprimand from the boss because you didn't do what the company wanted you to do. But the loyalty we have to Christ is more important than the loyalty we have to our earthly boss. That's easy to say, isn't it? Sometimes that's tough to do. And we get in those dilemmas. Because if we are to represent Christ to the world, we do that all the time. Not just when we gather here on Sunday morning. In fact, we don't represent Christ to the world very well at all on Sunday morning because we're here. We're not in the world. We're here getting ready to go out in the world. So this is our time together when we kind of get refreshed and renewed and learn a little bit and get pumped up and ready to go. When I was first started out in sales, I worked in this boiler room in the old days when I was one of those people that called you, at dinner time. Hi, have you heard, my name's Ron, have you heard about? Most people hang up. Some people swear before they hang up, but most people hang up. But for half an hour before we went on the phones, the boss would come in and get us all pumped up. Hey, it's going to be great today, everybody's going to be happy to talk to you. And that's kind of what we do in worship. We kind of get ourselves geared up because it's tough out there. Bad things happen. Things that hurt our hearts and hurt our minds and hurt our brothers and sisters. It's good to remember that we are all part of God's family and are here to help each other when those times get tough. When I was serving in Cherokee and then in Franklin, when I first started in Cherokee, Mark Grant, one of the lay people there, asked me one day, he says, "You want to come to a sweat?" I said, "Okay." I said, "What's a sweat?" He said, "Well, we go to the sweat lodge, and we go in the sweat lodge and we pray, and it's, we sweat out all our," I said, "It's like a sauna." I grew up in Michigan. I know about saunas. I said, "Oh yeah, no problem." Saunas are usually around 105 to 110 degrees. Sweat's about 140. And saunas usually spend 15 to 20 minutes. And sweat's about an hour and a half. You sweat the toxins out of your body, let me tell you. And you pray the whole time. Most of my prayers the first time was that I would live. Please, Lord, don't let me die in here. After a while, you kind of get used to it, but the first couple times, when you're just absolutely roasting and the guy in charge throws more water on those rocks, it's like, oh my God. But you come out cleansed. And that's in the Native American church. That's a way of it's like baptism. It's set up like an igloo almost, and you have to crawl in, and you're only wearing a towel, so it's kind of like, and then so you crawl out. It's kind of like being reborn because you have to crawl out of the thing. And believe me, you're so happy to be alive when you come out and get that fresh, cool air it's a good reminder. It's a good practice. I wouldn't recommend it for people with bad hearts, but it's a good practice to help us experience that renewal, that new life and new birth. And sometimes we have, especially those of us that grew up in the church our whole lives, it's hard to feel the newness sometimes. It just kind of gets same old, and we get kind of and we forget kind of, our call and our mission and just how wonderful it is to be part of the family. And sometimes we get reminders of that. Back when I was in college in Mount Pleasant and I needed a credit card, or at least I thought I did. And the gas station right next to where we lived was a Total. Remember them, Total? They still have? They had the refinery in Elma. It was a Total gas station, and they had a car wash, and I wanted a place I could get my car washed. And so I, applied for the credit card, and, of course I didn't get one because I was a college student. What, like now, when, everybody sends, you get 40 things in the mail every week, then you had to, like, work hard to get one. Yeah, I know, it's like ancient history, isn't it? You had to work hard to get a credit card. So, I applied several times, and they kept refusing me, so I called them on the phone. And I explained, I'm working in Mount Pleasant. I'm out of school here, and I'm working for the county, and I do a lot of traveling because I'm a procurement officer for jobs, and I need to be able to fill up my car and get car washed. And I explained all this to her, And she said, Van Lente. She says, is your dad Lloyd Van Lente? I said, yeah, that's my dad. She goes, oh, well, we'll get you set right up. Because he was her pastor. Back when we were in Shepherd, I said, I'm Ron, the little 3-year-old. Oh, yeah, good for you. I was there through 5th grade. I got that from that company, not because of who I was. She didn't know anything about me since I was, that high. But on my father's good name. And that's one of those things that come along that remind you, oh yeah, we get all this because of our Father's good name. That reminds us that all of this is a gift from God. We recently got to celebrate a couple baptisms, and the Sunday after Epiphany is traditionally the baptism of the Lord Sunday. And we remember that God's great gift to us in baptism is that we are part of the family. That we have that assurance that we are part of the family. I don't think God excludes people that aren't. I don't think He's that kind of God. But we don't know that we're part of the family until we've been washed in the water. And it's always good to remember that. Most of us, many of us, I'm sure were baptized long before we remember. The first time I remember any water was when I was about, I don't know, well, let's see, it's before I might have been 3.5 and was walking backwards, talking to my friend, and fell backwards into my little swimming pool, a little blow-up swimming pool. I remember that still. It was one of those, significant psychological events, I was scared that I remember that. That was kind of my baptism. And so it's good every year to remember your baptism. So we remember that once we dedicated ourselves, or our parents or guardians or other folks in the church dedicated us, and the teacher put a little water on us. Get some of you wet here. And that we're part of the family. A little water on us. Because being part of the family is good, because we get to do a lot of things because of our Father's good name. Because we are part of the family of God. And all John really says is that, look, if you're going to be part of the family, live like you're part of the family. Uphold the family name. Don't tarnish it. But uphold it and respect it and give it its due. And I think that's a pretty fair bar. Let us pray. Lord, sometimes we forget what family we're part of. And we do things and say things that, well, they're not very Christian. And we're sorry. We're not perfect by any means, and we do make mistakes from now and then. Use those times to remind us of who we are and whose family we're part of. And always help us, Lord, be thankful of the good gifts that we receive from you, simply because we are part of your family. And that our Father's good name will open many doors for us. Doors that give us opportunities to let others know the wondrous love of God. I thank you and praise you in Jesus' name.